Today on Heroic Nonsense, we suit up and unleash the Cobra S.N.A.K.E, the armored manned exosuit created by Cobra to take on G.I. Joe, big and small alike. I'm breaking down every detail, every accessory, and showing off tons of awesome display builds. You've never seen a snake like this before. Let's go. The Cobra S.N.A.K.E battlesuit is let loose in this week's spotlight. Although perhaps not made for everyone being a niche type vehicle and concept, it definitely packs a punch. To be honest, I wasn't quite sure how it would fit into our collection and got it for a variety of reasons, including as a curiosity. However, after having played around with it for this review, I now actually think it's a perfect addition to the Cobra classified legions, and is a great piece if you want to relive those early 80s Joe years. Stick around until the end where I show way more display ideas than I thought possible for this toy, and you'll see why I think this is a must-have for your shelf. Lock and load, because we're going deep behind enemy lines with the Cobra S.N.A.K.E. The first thing you notice about this Cobra battlesuit is that it is big. I mean, really big. Most Joe and Cobra vehicles are just that, vehicles. This one, however, is an exosuit that fits a full, traditionally sized Cobra Trooper in its upper half, so that just tells you what we're dealing with here. I think the first thing you have to realize is it's based off of a toy and cartoon design that screamed the 80s. Once you wrap your head around that, you can really start to appreciate the design and details of this battlesuit and enjoy it for what it is. The back is as impressive as the front in this case, showcasing a bit of extra love with what appear to be thrusters for it to fly, or at least that's the way I've been using it. The upper half is a bit stockier than the bottom, as it should be, since it is a driver's compartment. Although being a modern take on the original toy, it still manages to maintain the overall aesthetic of the 1983 release and design. I'm actually not sure they could have gone any other way than the way they did, i.e. making it sleeker, so we end up with very stylized and bulky arms, which totally works with this vehicle. Nice use of decals throughout the toy, including on the arm with the awesome Cobra symbol, as well as on the chest calling out the name of the vehicle. The design of the legs take a bit of getting used to, but again, very reminiscent of the original. One thing I really like is the weathered look of the figure, both in the paint application as well as across some of the decals. I also really like the addition of the headlights near the cockpit for pitch black night operations. I actually wish they worked, as that would have made for an awesome display. Definitely a great idea for a mod. One of the modern updates that works really well are these shoulder latches, for lack of a better word, that lock the cockpit unit into place and gives it an air of modernity and realism. I also really like the back with the updated classified version having this really cool backpack thruster system, which looks so good and definitely adds to the overall aesthetic. It even has some ports that you can use appropriately sized blast effects with to create this look of it launching into the night sky along with a platoon of Cobra claws and flight pods. The ports are set at an angle, which in my mind would allow the snake to move over large distances rather than truly fly. In this case, I used some of the blast effects from the HasLab Dragonfly. The fun truly begins when you open up the cockpit and look inside, which reveals a highly detailed interior with grips for the driver to hold onto as he climbs in, and an onboard screen for the pilot to use once enclosed in the armor. The rest of the interior includes a full-size seat with straps, 2 stick controllers to pilot the suit, and some more onboard screens. I think my favorite part of this exosuit is not the closed up ready attack version, but the more, in my opinion, dynamic looking version where the whole bay is opened and you have the driver climbing in. There are actually a number of ways to display the Cobra S.N.A.K.E this way, which we'll see in detail in the display and build ideas section towards the end of this spotlight. Each side has some really nice detail with the screens and other electronics that give this a whole lot more realism. If you look closely on the screen on this side, you can actually see that the screen has a tiny written readout, which makes for some incredible detailing. And with all the grips to hold onto, there are tons of ways to display the driver as he climbs into the unit. I hope those electronics are reinforced. Once in, this thing really comes to life. It's no longer a cold boxy exosuit, but a living, breathing system being controlled by a live Cobra soldier inside. I won't lie, it is a snug fit, but once you get the driver of your choice strapped in, you have this incredible display. And having the driver locked into place really gives you an idea as to size and scale. Now, my main choice for driver is a male version of the Cobra Trooper. I like that old school pair up. But if you want, you can easily use a female trooper as well. And while it may be a bit easier to fit her in, I think it doesn't look as good simply because the straps get a bit loose and the cockpit looks a bit emptier. If you do prefer going this route though, you can tighten up the straps by not using the attaching port in the middle and instead pulling it up higher and pushing the port underneath the chest strap like I did here. In all cases, the best way to fit your figure in though is by bending the knee at both joints so that the calves ultimately fold under the seat. Once you do that, you'll have no problem fitting the figure in and closing up the cockpit. Now let's take a look at the impressive number of accessories that Cobra S.N.A.K.E comes with, and they're all there. The flamethrower, the power clamp, the machine gun, and the missile launcher. Plus a few bonus effects for play and display, and that's in addition to 2 removable hands that the original didn't come with. Each of the hands can be replaced with any of the weapons in any configuration you can think of. The lower arms rotate, as do the ports at the hand joints, which can turn 360 degrees. I absolutely love this effect. It's my favorite, which I first saw with Classified Torch. It's the same one and works perfectly. I don't know how they pulled it off, but I find it to be the most realistic looking effect of the Classified line to date. It also comes with the Pilot Light version, which is a fun one to use for displays as well. The flamethrower even comes with a handle which can be used to carry it, which you can imagine the Snake pilot then uses to attach to the other arm once the missile has been launched. And here's a hint for an upcoming Classified review. See that small green pilot type flame effect attached to the machine gun? That means you can create some lore using this snake as some heavy psychic backup for a very special unit. Place your bets below in the comment section on who or what I'll be reviewing next. Since we are speaking about the machine gun, let's take a quick look at it as well. And I'd say it's less of a machine gun and more of some type of secondary flamethrower, though you can use it in multiple ways based on the design. So overall, a very cool addition to the Cobra team for those looking for a callback to the 80s, but also for those who want to delve deeper into the more mechanical and sci-fi elements of the toy line. Now let's see how this behemoth scales with some of the other figures and vehicles in the line. Starting with the biggest Cobra vehicle we have to date, the HasLab Hiss. And yes, hard to believe, but it is bigger in height. It will be awesome once we get the Arctic Hiss because I can see these two looking incredible together. Totally different vehicles in style, but for some reason these two look really cool next to each other. Anyone else feel that way? While I am using the ferret here for scale purposes, we will get to see how the snake compares to some other Cobra light attack vehicles like the Trouble Bubble and Cobra Claw in the next section, and boy do they work well together. I'll even incorporate the HMS into the Cobra Snake displays in some pretty unique ways, but for now, pretty good matchup size-wise. And we'll end with the figures, in this case using a Techno Viper, which will figure heavily into some of my builds in the next section. Since the Cobra Troopers are my main go-to for the pilots of these things, I figured I'd use them as a basis for our size comparisons. And they're basically half the size and height. I think it's really when you pair the snake with some figures or vehicles that you truly get a feel of how cool and impressive this thing is. And while I'm currently using the mainline trooper here as the pilot, I do plan on replacing him with the retro version once we open ours up. Alright, let's get right into the displays and build ideas because I have a bunch I'm excited to share with you. And we'll start with my favorite, which uses some Techno Vipers prepping the snake for its next mission. And while this type of display using only 3 figures and the snake looks incredible in my opinion, you really start getting a sense of how amazing these displays can look by adding just a few more figures and props here and there. And we haven't even gone to adding in the vehicles yet, so let's do that now. And bring in some more Cobra heavy hitters, the HMS and his tank for some extra support, which really fills out the empty spaces of the display nicely. And of course, we can't leave out one of my favorite Cobra vehicles ever, the Cobra Stinger. By the way, those sandbags I'm using come with the recently released Joe and Cobra modular bases, which I think are fantastic bonus accessories to create your own dioramas with. How about using the Cobra Snake in a more utilitarian way, by having it pick up the front of the Cobra Stinger for some in-the-field repairs? What better way to keep your vehicles in the fray of things than to have some Techno Vipers brought in mid-battle for repairs with some bats and heavy artillery support while the snake stands there taking fire. Of course, you don't need to be in the middle of a firefight to have the snake help with repairs, especially when embedded with a Cobra outpost far away from the warmth of the nice fully stocked repair bays of the Terrordromes. The last build idea used some of the original bats, but I think an even better match would be the snake with a special unit of Arctic bats. It's almost as if these guys were meant to be paired together, and what's more meta than a robot manning a mechanical exosuit? I especially love the similar colors and style that they share. They work perfectly together just from a design perspective. In my opinion, this is one of the coolest uses of the Arctic bats, as pilots for the equally terrifying Cobra Snake. And if the snake ever goes down, you'd get the bonus of the bat rising from the wreckage to continue the battle. And while we're on the topic of Arctic bats, let's head on over to an Arctic outpost with some other favorites of mine, the snow serpents. The first thing that always comes to mind when I think of the Cobra snakes is that early cartoon episode of the snakes in the cave surrounded by snow. So the idea of a Cobra unit of Arctic troopers maintaining a lone outpost somewhere in the middle of a snowy wasteland is the perfect display idea. The mix of cold blue steel and the white, black, and grays of the Cobra soldiers and vehicles is in my mind a perfect matchup. Wait until we get the HasLab Snowcat and Arctic Hiss. Now that will be a sight to behold. Still using the Cobra modular outpost for the backdrop and the idea of the snake as not only a battle unit but also as a tool, we have the snake helping load the HMS with the Heatseek XO3 missiles as the Stingers prepare to roll out with their cargo. I can almost see this exact setup really taking place, the Techno Vipers taking a final readout as the HMS units are hitched to the Stingers. I love placing the Stinger driver in this position for this display. Looking at this picture as I prepped for recording made me realize how lucky we are to actually be getting all these G.I. Joe toys in this scale. I mostly want to save the Snake battling G.I. Joe once we get the Snowcat, so for now I'm giving a sneak peek at what a battle against G.I. Joe could look like. At least one type of battle. I have a ton more ideas yet to come. But it definitely makes for an action-packed display that I'm confident we'll be able to build on once we finally get both G.I. Joe and Cobra Arctic units in meaningful numbers. For now though, it's fun to at least get a small glimpse of what's to come. And I couldn't end this section without a look at one of the best matchups so far, the Cobra S.N.A.K.E, Claw, and Flight Pods all together in one unit. Obviously, this is a major way to go if you want to create a cohesive looking display. These are all generally the same era vehicles in the same general color scheme. What more can you ask for? I may actually decide to use an idea based off of this display with these guys together for a bit until we get more Arctic vehicles and figures in. That's how much I like it. Now that we've wrapped up this section, what are your favorite builds and display ideas from this spotlight? Even better, what are some of your own ideas? Let us know in the comments section so we can share and discuss. Some of my favorite designs for packaging are for the G.I. Joe vehicles, and this one is no exception. What a cool background with a city on fire overrun by a unit of snakes. I personally would have went with a more snowy background, but this is as good, and it's really gritty. Nicely drawn image of the Cobra S.N.A.K.E on the side against a fiery background, really pops. Comic art is my favorite type of art, so this is right up my alley. Nice back-a-pack as always with a focus on the tech specs look. Would be fun if they linked all the pieces of equipment to their names and types though. And the more tech spec bluish side design to wrap it all up. So that's it for this week. Might be behind on next week's review or maybe a smaller one. Regardless, we'll be back on schedule and with a full and exciting review shortly after that. And guys, we're getting closer to my full review of the HasLab Cobra Rattler. Be sure to subscribe and come back for that because it will be a big one. Thanks for watching, and remember, it's all such heroic nonsense in the end.
Transform!